Write down a sentence, please. The primary cause of fear is the pounding persistence of the I thought. The primary cause of fear is the pounding persistence of the I thought. Put quote marks around I on both sides. The primary cause of fear is the pounding persistence of the I thought. Would you agree that fear is a pretty terrible thing? So we're going to spend the next several sessions exploring fear from different viewpoints, trying to understand it, and I assure you, I'll guarantee you, as a matter of fact, that when you understand the nature of fear, the false nature of fear, the imposing nature of fear, understand it thoroughly, you'll then know what you must do with it, which is nothing, and it will vanish. Would someone care to raise their hand and tell us what they're afraid of as a start tonight? Anybody afraid of anything? Sarah?
I'm afraid of death.
Afraid of death? Duffy?
Afraid of aging.
Aging, growing older. Who else, please? Ellen?
Death, embarrassment, people seeing my shameful thoughts, what I call my shameful thoughts.
Seeing through you?
Right.
Joe?
To a greater or lesser degree, everything. Certain things
Sure.
more than others.
Sure, everything. Did you have your hand?
Not being nice.
Not being nice.
Not having an answer.
Incidentally, just a side comment on that, then we'll go to Randy. Have you ever noticed that you don't mind being unnice, you just don't want other people to see it?
Right.
Being unnice is even a pleasure, isn't it? Huh? A false pleasure. Randy, please.
I'm afraid of being caught without knowing what to do.
Without your usual role,
Yes.
the way you behave habitually, and a new circumstance throws you out of the role, and so you don't know how to behave. You don't know which of your many selves you're supposed to protect or promote. That's painful, isn't it? Not knowing how to act. And so you know what we do? We play it safe, if we're in a crowd, by acting like everybody else does. You clap at the wedding and cry at the funeral. Try doing the opposite sometime. Especially cry at the funeral. I mean at the wedding. All right. We sense, in fact we know, not very deeply, but we sense that our thoughts are perishable. Of course they are. Just in the short time you've been in this room, and I've been in this room, we have thought hundreds, perhaps thousands of thoughts which arose in our minds, appeared briefly. We spoke from them, acted from them, emotionalized from them. The thought passed away, went away, and perished, did it not? How about the thought when you first spoke to someone, when you came in here, you said, hello, Sarah, hello, Joe, or whatever. I told Joe to get the clock. That thought is gone forever. Now, sensing the impermanence of thoughts, we become fearful, we become terrified, because having identified ourselves with the thoughts, we therefore say, I am going to come to an end just as that thought did. The thought will always come to an end. Your thought that you're unnice, the thought that you want to be nice, the thought that you are generous perhaps on some occasion, that thought will certainly come up, 1,000 times a day, 10,000 times a day. And so we get the feeling of self, of someone in action, by saying, my thoughts are me. Great, I'm okay as long as I can find lots of things to call me all during the day, and it doesn't make any difference what it is. I can be sorrowful, I can be cruel, I can even be afraid. As long as I'm afraid, I feel okay. I feel miserably okay as long as I can be tense and terrified. Gives me something to do with myself. It gives myself something to do with me. My minute or hour is occupied with being afraid. Look at the curious place we've come to in this discussion already. I'm afraid to come to the end of my fear. Isn't that ridiculous? Have you ever thought about that? You think about it right now. You or I, and those of you listening to this tape, are afraid to be without my fear. The death of fear would, of course, be the end of me. If I learn what it means to let thoughts rise as they do naturally and fade away as they do naturally, if I could understand that connection with my anxiety, fear, if I can understand that, if I can see that I am formed out of my rising thoughts with which I identify, that is, I say, I'm afraid, and don't forget all the connections that go with fear. For example, hatred. If you fear someone, you also hate him. There's no way to separate them. So it becomes quite necessary for me to survive as Vernon or Joe or Joan or Juan, to survive at all costs. In order to survive and not die, I must keep my fear and hatred going. If I don't, I will die, I say to myself, not seeing that I'm already living in a state of death while living. I must die to fear, die to the fear of dropping my fear, and go into this experience of not having a role to play. I meet my parents after having a quarrel with them. I meet my ex-wife, my ex-husband, ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend. I meet someone I work with after having a quarrel with them. I run into the boss somewhere after criticizing him and he found out about it. I fight with my wife, whatever. As I go into the room where he or she is, the only defense, get this, the only defense I know is to be afraid. As long as I'm afraid, I feel I can handle the situation okay. Because being in a state of tension is going to protect me, not from the boss or wife. They really are nothing. They're the secondary cause, which we'll get to eventually. But seeingly, or get a place for the gen. Yeah, okay, hi. Yeah. Right. As long as I can be afraid in my confrontation with the ex-wife, with the boss, I feel safe. I'm okay. Why? Because there is someone there meeting the crisis. Therefore, if there's someone there meeting the crisis, that someone there I've already identified in my vanity and sickness, identified him or her as being competent, being tough, being intelligent, as being someone who's able to walk right into that situation and come out okay. Even if I have to fight, if I have to cry, no matter what I do, the main thing for me to try to do in my delusion is to have a fearful, if necessary, person there, and it will always be a fearful person there. If I have to have any thought at all about how I'm going to meet you after fighting with you, if I have to plan, if I have to look out of my corner eye to see how you're going to handle it so I can adjust to, if you're going to cry, then I'll apologize. Keep my ego in place. Depends on how you handle it, too. That's why I'm going to keep my eye on you. The important thing is that I remain afraid in order to protect myself from being afraid. Right? Understand? Are we mixed up or not? Cover for a minute the idea of secondary causes of fear. You know the primary one. You wrote it down. The pounding persistence of the I thought. Kind of remember this classification. It'll help you think clearer, and we want to think clearer toward this subject of tension, fear, apprehension. The secondary causes are simply the crisis that comes up out there, or the crisis that comes out in here. Someone mentioned the fear of aging, of growing old. Where is that crisis? The secondary cause is seeing that 90-year-old man or woman out there just barely making it down the street, and me looking at it. And then the primary cause goes into action. The secondary cause, the first initial one, which is secondary, which set me off, was my own anxiety over the fact that I'm going to someday be like that person if I should live that long. Then the primary cause of fear comes into action, that someday I won't be 30 years old. Someday I won't even be 70 years old if I should live even that long. So the primary cause comes in, the pounding persistence of the I thought. Why should you be young? Oh, because you get more pleasure out of it. You're more sexually active when you're young. You can make a lot of money when you're young. You have identified yourself as being young, now you're afraid of the opposite, right? Now remember that characteristic also of fear, that we always fear the opposite of what we have identified with in our own thoughts. You track that down in some of the things you're afraid of, and you'll see that the whole thing is involved with you trying to be unafraid by clinging to a fearful position. The position where you think you're secure. I'm young, I've got it made. Then you see the 90-year-old man and now you're afraid. Or you have thoughts about how you should be. I am going to read the Bible, and I'm going to go to a self-improvement class, and as I study myself and get these principles, I'm going to become a nicer person. I'm going to be more courteous, I'm more patient, I'm going to be more loving with people. As I was taught, you should like people and be nice to them. It's not nice to hurt people. And so I have all these ideal images about what I'm going to be, and then quite unexplainably to myself, I just can't help but being grouchy, but being irritable, but blowing up, but thinking bad thoughts toward other people. And then I compare the way I behaved with the way I think I should be, and I'm afraid. I will tell you right now, you'll make a very sharp and right attack on fear if you'll never, ever, ever, ever think of how you should ever be in the future. Because that is one of the pounding, persistent thoughts that says, in due time, if I study long enough, then I'll change and I'll be okay. I'll feel happy inside, and then that inner happiness, of course, won't want to be unkind to anyone else, as I now am. This means, of course, that you refuse to give up your belief in yourself as your own savior. You can't save yourself. You never have. You have tried every angle you can think of. By going into thought, you're going to do this or do that. You're going to get religious, or you're going to get a new religion, or you're going to give up all religion, or you're going to put on an act, and at least that's better than nothing, to have people think that you're nice. go back to a very important point, which you should think of long and hard, which is, because we know that every thought we have will rise and go away, we're also afraid that all these thoughts about ourselves, these ideals, all these aims, all these convictions that we have, we're very much afraid that I will go away when the thought goes away. I'm going to be nicer next year. I keep that in my mind all the time. It's just a matter of time because I'm in a good study group, and maybe even God himself will help me. You don't know what you're talking about when you say God, but you throw that in. It sounds good. Sounds encouraging. And so you never do the one thing that is necessary for you to come first of all face to face with the fact that you're afraid, which would help you to understand it, which will eventually put an end to it. And let me tell you right now, if you're lying about your fears, which you are, that is hiding them, pushing them down, refusing to see them, that is a form of lying about them. If you think you've got it made, if you're smug because you've identified with your money or your youth or whatever, that's a form of lying about your fear. And if you have too many of them, this class won't be of any interest to you at all. Because this class must have the aim of being completely honest with ourselves and see how mixed up, how scared we are, how we don't want to face those terrible habits that we have. We don't want to examine them because we do indeed sense that a close examination of them would cause us to do something we don't want to do, which is to go to work to put an end to them through understanding. Just look at everything you have done up to this point in your life and an attempt to get over being afraid. Do that first of all, and you'll see that nothing you've ever tried has put an end to it. You're still afraid. Why don't we really try something quite drastic, something that the forces opposing it are incredibly powerful. I use the word pounding persistence. You could say the powerful persistence of the I thought that doesn't want to give itself up. But by detecting, let me switch the thought a bit. Do you see how the devil enters into all of this? The devil being the I thought, the unconsciousness, our refusals to see what's going on inside of us. You're making a proper attack on the devil by bringing in the light that will expose him as the nothingness that he is, having no power over you at all, as long as you're willing to be no one at all except the light, except to be the light that your real nature is. How can light be afraid of darkness? It has nothing to do with darkness. It doesn't know darkness. All our labels prefer the darkness because they don't want to give themselves up. So we're going to have to do much better than to do surface work in getting over fears, like distracting ourselves, reaching for the snack in order not to face the thought, reaching for the telephone. How much more horrible, ladies and gentlemen, how much more horrible can you make your fears? I will tell you what to do from now on if you want to be free of fear. You will live with it. It'll be your companion every second. If you're smart. If you're smart, you'll get up in fear. You'll go to work in fear. You'll drive the car in fear. You'll come home in fear. You'll watch TV in fear. But you will know that you're being afraid. That's the difference. Oh, you're doing it anyway, you understand.
Yeah.
In other words, we're becoming conscious of how dreadful the state really is. And also becoming conscious that there is no way out that is familiar. If the way out was familiar, then you would be out. The familiar can never be the way out. It's only the unknown, the unfamiliar, that can get us out. Write down another sentence, please. A lack of associations is first a fog and then a clear sky. A lack of associations, a lack of mental associations, put the word mental in there. A lack of mental associations is first a fog and then a clear sky. A lack of mental associations is first a fog and then a clear sky. All right. All our lives we have known what to do. Known what to do to get happy, known what to do to keep people from hurting our feelings. We've known what to do, how to get along in this world. And everything we've known what to do didn't do a thing for us, did it?
Right.
In other words, we have gone along the path of least resistance to all our associations. The way to get along with you is to flatter you, to con you, to be afraid of you. Just follow all the familiar associations that I've built up through my conditioning, through my habits, through my experiences over these years. Just go along with all these the mental flow of associations. This is familiar to me. And when I run out of these familiar associations, as when I'm caught in a strange situation, no associations arise, therefore I'm in a fog. Therefore I become afraid, because I'm afraid that I am being deserted by my very best friend, my old foggy thoughts, who always tell me what to do. For example, get mad, get jealous, weep, whatever. But if a situation comes up where I can't handle it with my usual associations, I get afraid. So fear comes in. Or if I run into a situation while I am working on myself and understand that I must not go along with the river of associations, so I refuse to go along with them, I also become afraid. But this is a different situation. Because I'm trying to understand myself, I deliberately put myself into the fog of no associations, of not knowing what to do. That is, you snap at me, and I'm working on myself, and I get ready, and I watch my snap getting ready to go back at you, which would make me, quote mark, comfortable, and make me feel alive, I snap back at you, but I'm working on myself, and I see it rising up, I'm getting ready, you're really getting after me, but I'm working, and I throw the log in front of it. I refuse that association thought, that is, get mad as you usually do. I refuse it. I'm in a fog. I don't know what to do. Right? Isn't that marvelous, what I've done? For the first time in my life, I don't know what to do, but I feel and know and understand that I don't know what to do. That's a new experience, isn't it? As I continue with this, to refuse the habitual flow of thoughts which keep me afraid, I refuse it. The fog, which I experienced at first, which is the valley of the shadow of death, which I must pass through, the death of me, which is the increasing of the crisis. I must always increase my crisis, never decrease it. If I decrease it, I increase it. If I increase it, I decrease it, right? As I begin to understand this and do this at every possible opportunity, then the fog dissipates, because I dissipate. I am the fog. I'm the only fog I've ever had. No one but me. I thought that you caused me all this grief, and it was nice to say that, because then I could escape my self-responsibility and I could remain a smiling liar. But now I've faced it, and the associations, the flow of them, slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down. And as I disappear, as I go away, my anxiety, my tension, my fear, my apprehension go away too. Because that is all I ever was. Wouldn't you agree that you were fear? Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yes.
Where's the fear without you? Where is it? Up on the mantle? It's in me. It's in you. As we do all these things, as we work on and begin to understand them, the fear fades. We'll take a break, and then we'll go on with questions and open discussion, and we'll continue with this on Friday night, the topic of fear. Write down another sentence, please. Only conscious defiance of fear will end it. Only conscious defiance of fear will end it. Only conscious defiance of fear will end it. Have you ever noticed how submissive you are to your fears and your anxieties? Have you ever noticed how timid you are? Have you ever noticed how you fawn before your fears? Never seeing that the fawning is what gives them the power. You have given it the power. Through your misunderstanding, you have bowed down and worshiped the idol of fear, because up to this point of your life, it's the only God you have known. Can you imagine that? You don't see that, do you? You don't see just as much as if fear was a stone statue 50 yards tall out in the yard, and you bowed down and worshiped it. It's exactly what you're doing. Why? You won't give up being afraid. It's asking too much. And not wanting to do this because you want to be who you are as the worshiper, not wanting to do this, you invent, or I invent, 1,000 different rationalizations and excuses for continuing to be afraid. One lie being, you have to find out what your lies are. One of them being, well, fear is necessary. We're in a very scary world. No, 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 no. You are the scary world. It's not out there at all. It is to the other scared person, but not to you unless you're on his level. And you both want to be scared. Then you become friends or get married. So that's 2 against the world at least, instead of 1. And now you're afraid of each other, so what have you gained? You look deep inside yourself and see where you are justifying your apprehensions. Where you're saying, for some reason, they must remain. Then sooner or later you'll have to see through the lie that you are fear. You are both fear and you're not fear. One understands that at the same time. You are your fear because this is all you know about yourself at the present time. A fearful person. Old friend. Of course, this is the friend, in quote marks, that you've known up to this point. So your friend is your enemy. Your real friend is the absence of you. Write that down. My real friend is the absence of me. My real friend is the absence of me. And I order you, an esoteric order, a class order, to, from this evening on, to refuse to bow down and worship that tall idol of fear which you think is a good thing to do. Because you even think in your confusion that anything you worship you can pacify, and maybe it will turn and be good to you. You are worshiping fear, calling it God, because you understand the fickleness of the mind, and you hope and pray that the God of fear which you worship will somehow turn into its opposite of a God of blessing and help you not be afraid. You were a lunatic to think that way. You were ordered to never again fawn before your fears, and the way you stop fawning is to stand there in front of it in fear and trembling without doing a thing toward it or about it or with it. Remember one of our standard sayings in this class? If you're nervous, just stand and shake. Stand and shake right in front of that idol, and that idol which you think is made of steel and hard and thick and heavy, to your astonishment, it will begin to crumble. You'll see a part fall off on the left and a part on the right and a part on the top. And it will begin to lose its fearful form. See, the devil is really quite clever. The devil being that idol. And the devil knows how to intimidate you. You're the devil, you understand. It's not out there. You're your own devil, fearing your own devil. The devil is fearing the devil. But it knows how to intimidate you, and so it has fierce eyes. If you ever see a person with fierce eyes, he's sick, and don't you dare be scared of him anymore, or her. Ever seen a person with cold, hard eyes? This is hard, icy. What was your reaction? See? You worshipped him by being afraid of him or her. Those cold, hard... And you're making them more neurotic, which is immoral, because they're getting pleasure out of seeing their reaction to you. Anyway, the idol will begin to lose its shape. Pretty soon, it'll be a big hulk, a shapeless mass, which will eventually crumble down and fall away right in front of your eyes. And you'll wonder why you were ever afraid of it. You'll wonder why you ever fought it. You will wonder why you ever lied and said, "I love you, stone idol." You lied and said, "I love you, stone idol," because you, being the devil too, the idol too inside of you, wanted to con it into thinking you were nice to it so it would be nice to you. But it will betray you because you are betraying yourself by wanting to betray it. Back and forth. All right, we have lots of time for open discussion and questions and answers. Yes, please. Is that Dottie? Yes.
At the beginning of the discussion, you were talking about primary and secondary causes. And I lost you on the secondary causes.
Secondary cause? All right. You give us a list. I'll start you off, and you have to work a little bit, Donnie. A secondary cause of fear is a man looking grouchily at you when you bump him in the grocery market. Right? The secondary cause is the man looking grouchy at you. Where does the fear go from there? That's the cause out there. Then where does it go? Inside you? Huh? It was in you all the time, wasn't it? Give us another secondary cause, an exterior one. It can be either exterior or interior. But try to see an exterior one, it's easier. Then you can see your own interior causes, secondary causes. Anybody? Help Dottie.
Authorities.
Huh?
Authorities, policemen, so on.
Yes, someone in a uniform who can give you a ticket. See the association there? Policeman looking at me. He has one of these little things they point at your car now. That's a secondary cause of fear, the speedometer.
Vernon, how about you see an accident and somebody's hurt very badly, and then you're kind of glad it's not them, and then you're kind of glad it's not you.
Yes. You go into a fearful that maybe it could have been you or something. Yeah. Those are the sparks that set off the dynamite of the primary fear. Dottie, yes, please.
Secondary causes can be either exterior or interior.
Yes, they can.
But the primary cause is always interior.
Is always what?
Inside you.
No, the primary cause is always inside you. Yes, excuse me, huh? Always has to be. It's your fear. Where else is it going to be?
How about being caught in a false position?
Okay. Out socially somewhere, maybe someone catches you.
Somewhere you shouldn't be.
Yeah, all right. That's the exterior cause, the secondary cause, isn't it? Then it goes to the primary one. Oh, I got caught.
An incident happened to me today. A man threw out a question, a mechanical question. He said, "What's new with you today?" And I felt the mechanical answer come up, and then I refused it. And then I saw that there was a fear. There was a silence, and he was waiting for me to say something. And I was really trembling inside, and I didn't say anything.
You stood and shook, did you? Joe.
Any kind of a physical disaster or financial disaster, whether it's personal or national or even worldwide, will trigger fear.
Oh, yes. And do you know, the world is filled with prophets of gloom and doom. This is how they sell newspapers and how they make the TV program interesting. We're going to run into all these problems, and you know, people actually like gloomy news for the very reason that we explained here for quite a while. It gives you a sense of being in the center of something very dramatic and exciting and interesting. If any of you are gloom passers-oners, stop it. You're getting a false sense of self out of that. And you know that your fear of something, listen to this, and boy, you'll have to see this 10 miles deep. Your fear of something is what attracts it.
Yeah.
Have any of you ever been afraid of meeting the wrong person of the opposite sex in your life? Ever been afraid of that, Don't you know that your fear of that is what attracted him? Because your fear is a part of the lack of clarity of your mind. So you can't understand yourself or that other person. And so your unconscious fear attracted the very thing you wanted to avoid. A clear mind won't attract confusion. Only a confused mind will attract that man, that woman who's confused and who you get into trouble with. And who you hurt too, because you're both on the same level of confusion. Yes.
You once mentioned about talking or speaking from a state rather than from thought.
Go ahead.
Would you go into that?
Yeah, it's an alternation of thought and no thought. I'm quite freely using thought right now in one way. You know what the thought is? The thought is, I speak the English language, and that's the words I'm speaking to you in right now. So memory is certainly operating right at this very second that I'm talking to you. But another thing is also going on at the same time that the mechanical memorized part is going on. I'm turning my attention right now back to me right now. I'm aware of the expression on my face, where my hands are. I can hear the sound of my voice. I am aware that I am letting mechanicalness run on. That can never be negative when you know that you're being mechanical. See, that is proper mechanicalness. Otherwise, we couldn't speak the English language to each other, could we? So the two can go on at once. It's when we're unconsciously mechanical, that we get negative. So be very, very watchful. I've told you many times, as a practice right in this class, when you ask a question, listen to yourself talk and ask the question. And you'll see all sorts of things that you have been told about. For example, you may catch yourself, this little stunt of starting to talk, and then you run out of something, you pause, and I think you're through, so I start in, then you remember it, the stop and start idea. And you'll see that you're doing that. And you'll be able, through your own understanding of it, to stop it. You'll speak, and when you're really through with the thought, you'll stop. Or, if you're real smart, if you're a compulsive talker, and if you're a compulsive thinker, you'll be a compulsive talker, whether you are or not, because you may be suppressed and afraid to talk. You can begin to see that you want to talk, and you'll deliberately stop yourself, which will give you an awakening shock, won't it? Any compulsive talkers in the room? Any compulsive thinkers in the room? Any compulsive emotionalizers in the room?
About compulsive non-question askers.
Yes. And you're almost one of them.
Yeah.
Let's see the compulsive non-question askers. You're getting as bad as I am. Fred, yes?
Yeah, as a secondary cause, I was thinking that another person's knowledge and position causes a great deal of fear in me.
Say that again.
Okay, a person's knowledge and their position. The example I'm thinking of is other people that I work with. I see that at times in practical work that I actually have a fear. If I don't know how to do something, someone else does, it starts off a whole bunch of fear thoughts. I'm going to lose my job or
Yes. Yeah.
whatever. And I had the thought that apparently that's exactly what I do with this knowledge. And the thought just occurred to me as we were going along that I'm doing the very same thing. In other words, I'm trying to build an I or build a person out of the knowledge that I get from this class, and I use that to do battle, I guess, ego competition with these other people.
To keep Fred going.
Yeah.
Right. That was very well expressed, yeah. Why don't some of you who don't speak up defy that 50-foot idol and speak up? And if you're lucky, if you're real lucky, you'll ask a dumb, stupid question, and you'll hear groans from the audience and a reprimand from the teacher. Wouldn't that be valuable to you? Huh? Or you want to play it safe so that we'll assume you're smart? We're not assuming it.
Since you talked, I don't have any questions. You telling me how not to do it, I don't get no questions. Oh, no, I don't understand. Robin.
They've explained a lot when you said how we like gloomy news, world news, any kind of gloomy news. is that all our suppressed fears we can let out in those which we otherwise don't show. We can wallow in and show all our fears which are otherwise hidden.
Yes. We love to feel our emotions.
It seems to me that every day you have to choose this work in small ways, and today in a very large way I had to choose it. But every day you have to make the decision
Yes.
for it.
Eventually it'll come down to every hour, won't it? Then every minute, then every second, won't it?
Yeah.
Won't it? You have to choose every second whom you will serve. That steel idol out there, or the truth itself. Until the time comes when you see there's not even a you to serve the truth. As long as you think there's a you to serve the truth, you're serving the idol.
But when you choose it, every time, not every time that you do, you gain a little strength from
Yes,
it.
I should say you do, and this is what we're trying to do. To get 1 ounce of strength a day, extra added strength a day. The thing the devil fears most is you doing what you don't want to do by working in any one of these hundreds of ways you've been told. That's the one thing the devil fears most of all. You putting these things into practical application every day, every hour, every minute. And it is your duty, absolute duty, to make the devil afraid. Do you know why? Because in no other way will you become conscious of the hold he has on you. Do you remember I said you must live with fear? Live with it. As if you have any choice but to live with it. If you are fear, which you are, then you do live with it. We're trying to see how afraid we are. Rod.
Sometimes I notice that the things I don't do, the choices I don't make, I'll continue next week.
Does a automobile have a choice to go left or right?
No.
Do you think you have a choice as to be good or bad?
No.
Does a machine, a human machine, have a choice? All you can do is watch very, very carefully and see that you are a machine who has no choice whether it goes left or right, because it's hurtling down that hill and subject to that rock that hits the left wheel and sends it over that way. It's subject to hitting the curb on the right that sends it off that way. It's subject to the tree it bounces against and goes off that way. As we live now, only on the intellectual level is the prey of accidental forces. And these accidental forces are both out there and in here. What I think could be an accidental force if it's a negative thought. Another accidental force could be the world out there and how I react to it, watching the news. These are all accidental forces. And this is why we walk into traps, because we're asleep thinking that we're conscious. We walk right into them and say, why did this happen to me? It happened to you because you sleepwalked right into it. We're trying very hard here to raise ourselves above the law of accident, which is above the law of the intellect. There's really, there's really only one choice we ever have. It's the only choice we have or need, ever. You don't have any choice to be good. How are you going to be good? Have you ever tried to be good? You know? It doesn't work. Doesn't work, does it? The only choice we have is to give up trying to make choices to be good or to be strong. Give up your so-called decision that you're going to be spiritual. Give that up. We got someone. Now, when you succeed in giving up trying and something other than you takes over, then do you have a choice? No, there's no need for it. Does God have to choose anything? Choice comes in only when the I says that woman will make a better wife than that wife. Or this or that will make me happier. God doesn't choose anything to make him happy. He is. The only choice we ever need to have in our life is to give up. And we better have a full-length talk on that sometime, what it means to give up.
Keep coming to class.
Keep coming to class. Zena.
That cliche, you know, when the student is ready, the teacher shall appear, is that just, you know, a nice saying, or is there any...
No, that's really quite true, Zena. But of course, the teacher doesn't necessarily have to be a physical teacher. The teacher can be the truth itself. If you don't have anyone to teach you, but you really want the truth, God himself will take over. And that's all he's doing anyway through the teacher. Try again?
Yeah, I was just thinking, but if you had an idea of what the teacher's going to be teaching you, then you're off the track.
I should say.
Yeah.
You just want him to confirm your own beliefs, or to be like your image of what a teacher should look like, act like. You get the teacher you deserve.
That's yourself open for that.
Let me figure that one out.
What about the teacher getting the students?
What was that, Jim?
I said, what about the teacher getting the students?
Yeah. Do you mean to say I asked for this? I better examine my choices.
In connection with this, I can't resist mentioning there's a famous esoteric teacher who lived a little earlier in the century, and a woman came to him and she said, "But sir, I'm just so tired of all my family duties and responsibilities and my children and all of this and so on and so on." And he said, "Well, isn't that interesting?" Because he says, "You know, I came to this very place to avoid having exactly what you're talking about, a family and all the responsibilities." He waved his hand around and he says, "And now look."
Continue next week.
No, that's not continued next week. That's the end of it.
It's out of focus.
This came up a long time ago, but when we were talking about fear, someone said something that I think about every now and then. The fact that this person was afraid of his or her own mind.
Oh, yes.
Which is maybe one of the biggest fears.
Well, aren't you afraid that you're going batty? Well, you know. Dorothy.
Quite often, when I'm getting ready to come out to this class, I'm almost overcome with fear. No, really.
In this class?
When I'm getting ready to come out to this class.
You get afraid.
Yes, it's like I have to force myself.
You've ever examined it?
To a small extent.
Is there a part of you, Dorothy, that resents coming here?
Yes.
Uh-huh. And the rest of you too, every one of you. What part do you suppose that is?
It ain't God.
What?
It ain't God.
That isn't very grammatical.
Well, maybe it's the part that you're thinking, gee, the rest of the world isn't coming out here. The rest of the world is going on, you know, and there's only a small part that comes to this class. You think, well, gee, what am I doing here? It's unfamiliar or something.
Excuse me, first the lady, please.
Oh, all right, the lady.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you. Now I forgot it.
Well, thinking about it, I would like to say, the third meeting will be the time that I was ready to speak up and so forth, but I think the time is now that I would like to be myself, to know. Myself, I come into this class, and the first day I learn very greatly. I meet here a man, and which is Howard, like here you say no name and so forth. And I really enjoy it very much, and no part to regret to coming over here or be afraid in any way. This I say that one because I feel it, and here supposed to be say the truth and nothing but the truth. But if I come here, because I learning every day from Howard and from the classes, the question, answer, and so forth. Furthermore, I would like to say that I enjoy very much to be here, and I learning very much. I don't write my book because I never like classes. I got very fair education, and I don't like the classroom. But here, like it, Howard, you say too, it's open-minded, and I don't like to write, but I absorb everything so good that I compute almost everything I learn here. I take the good part, and I really learn very much indeed, and the briefly time that I spend in here.
All right, all right. Don't feel guilty about not writing things down. Maybe you'd rather give your full attention to listening.
I really do that.
Whichever is best for you, for yourself. All right, you got it now?
I got it.
You got it.
As long as you don't call me a lady anymore. When we come out here, we know you mean business. And we have to work. And this is the hardest thing, what we actually want to do to ourselves, is to really buckle down and work.
Write down the following, please. The person trying to do something about the pain is part of the pain itself. The person trying to do something about the pain is part of the pain itself. So failure must always result, comma, so failure must always result. The person trying to do something about the pain is part of the pain itself, so failure is always the result. Do you see this? Do you see why this is so? Where does pain exist? Pain always exists on the level of misunderstanding. Where do you exist? On the level of misunderstanding. So misunderstanding is trying to understand misunderstanding. No wonder Larry wants to bump into the, what was it?
Tumbleweed.
Tumbleweed. No wonder the lady once told me she felt like blowing up the whole world. We're so frustrated. Let's see the frustrated people here. Because you're trying to do the impossible. And I'll tell you, when you really admit the impossibility of trying to solve yourself the way you have been doing, when you really see it, the whole thing will vanish. And you know what? There'll be no you to do any action anymore. And when you stop acting, the action is there without you. Go ahead, Linda.
Some of this pain and this fear is so small, and as we're really watching, we don't see it. It's so subconscious that it comes up. Now, the thing to do is when the pain comes is just to watch it and intensify it and nothing else.
You know what you could have done if you heard your doorbell ring and, you know, you're a little timid or scared. Who's that? And once you heard the doorbell ring, why didn't you walk toward it just watching your state, whatever it might be? Resentment, what's this? Who's knocking on my door, something like that?
I never realized before that when I heard that there's a fear there.
I'm telling you, and not just her, I'm telling you, you don't know yourself at all, in the slightest. And this is why you can be so arrogant about how spiritual you are, how you understand so much, how you don't need this class. You don't even know what a persistent liar you are about everything. You know the perfect evidence that we are liars? The fact that we suffer. If you suffer, you're a liar. Period. Do you understand, by the way, that I was well aware of what was happening? You thought I forgot that it was 7 o'clock and I was supposed to stop you people from coming up and give you a nice little talk? If you came here and sat for an hour and a half and resented something that went on in here and saw the resentment, you will have come here gone out with value. You want a routine, a nice set little talk, the man in command up there. You want someone to think for you, to take charge for you. Go ahead. Then you'll be scared for the rest of your life. You want someone else to lead you, be brave for you, talk for you. You want that authority, and yet when that authority changes the smallest little thing, you don't like him anymore. Why don't you live up to my expectations about the way I think you should conduct the class, for example? Right? It's very good for me to sit here and look out and know that you want certain things because you've had them before, a nice half-hour talk. Just sit here and not give it to you. Knowing what you're thinking. You have your notebooks out. Oh, I don't want to write down Larry's dumb fact. Next speaker. Duffing.
Make a comment to your just speech right now. This is what we battle all day long, that our eyes are reaffirmed, that everything leads up to what we expect out of the day. And it's very weary and tiresome.
I have a reoccurring problem. I walk along the street and I'll see maybe 50 people will pass me by. Beautiful. And then all of a sudden someone will pass me by and I have this hostile feeling. And I think, well, I don't know that person. Now why? I'd like to have Vernon tell me. Or the class.
Why you're hostile?
Yeah.
Do you feel ignored?
No.
Do you get lonely?
No, I don't get no, I don't get lonely.
You don't get lonely?
No. That's one problem. I had that problem for years, but today I don't get lonely.
How well do you think you understand yourself?
Oh, I don't understand myself at all. I wouldn't take and fly in here from Huntington Beach if I thought I understood myself. I haven't got that kind of money.
Would like to comment on why Mr. DeFrancis gets hostile when passing 50 people on the street.
No, I only get, that's one out of that 50. There's one out of the 50.
That you get hostile at?
Yeah, I'll walk for 15 minutes and everyone's beautiful, just like this crowd here is. And then all of a sudden one person will walk by that I've never seen him before, and I feel this hostility rising within me.
Tom will tell you.
Because you finally, I would assume, because you finally see a psychology that you react adversely to, and sooner or later, no matter how much you practice non-identification, you're going to see something in somebody that's within yourself.
I see me. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just want to find.
Zena, then, excuse me.
Yeah.
Zena, then Larry.
I was wondering if it could be that at the 50th person, maybe he recognized the hostility within himself, and then he projected it out onto that person.
The hostility is in you, of course.
Yeah.
It will find a target. Larry, then Sally. You want to give a second talk?
Yes.
Oh, okay, but make it brief.
How to never be lonely.
Okay.
I've been watching very heavily my thoughts. Last week I had quite a period of time. I was just sitting very quiet, no distractions, and I could get the mind slowed down real well and actually watch them. Now, how to never be lonely. In the absence of thought frame, I could catch from this corner out here me telling myself a joke. I'd see it, I'd pass it. Then out of another corner, I could see myself, well, I lost it for just a moment, but there was two of them that came to me. One telling myself a joke. I've forgotten what the other one was, but it was cute. Now, there's really more to it than that. I was lonely. My mind got lonely trying to stand still. That, I feel, is some form of loneliness to me is lack of distraction. External or mental, either one. So a part of me was sitting there in lonesomeness, really, and another part of my mind's going to tell me a joke. Ah, I've got it. The reason that this jokester came up is all of my life I have thought I've been a jokester. I've told some funnies in my life, and that old self is not gone at all, although I would like to think it gone. It's still way down deep and crawls up whenever it gets a chance.
Sally, you had a comment?
I was just going to say with Mr. DeFrancis, it could have been an association from the past, a negative association, unconscious.
All right. Chuck?
We got so many eyes in us, who knows what it was.
Okay. Jim?
We're all continuously angry at all times, but a lot of times we're so asleep in daydreams that we can walk by 50 people and not see them.
Linda?
We're all lonely, aren't we?
Yes.
Didn't you give Mr. DeFrancis the answer when you asked him, do you understand yourself?
I was hinting at it.
What was my answer?
I don't know.
No. That was your answer.
I don't understand myself.
Then why did you say you weren't lonely?
I am not lonely. Let me say it like this. I'm by myself home. I never turn on a television.
What are you doing with your mind?
Pardon?
You don't turn on television, but what are you doing with your mind?
I either got one of Vernon's books that I read, or I take a walk around the block. I take and try to, I really don't know what I do. Really. But as far as, I've had that period in my life where it's terribly lonesome, but I don't have that now. I don't have that problem. Unconsciously, now, if it is completely unconscious, but I just do not have a problem of loneliness. I would rather, for instance, stay home by myself than go play bridge. I would rather stay home and enjoy myself and take a walk around the corner than go play bingo. This is what I'm trying to say.
Rod?
All right, can we turn off the light?
Duffy?
Can I say something again?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
I go quite often to a dental office, and it seems like the person who works on me, their life was always under control. And the last few times I noticed a great sensitivity in a person who before was very fun-loving and joking. And this time I was there, and I could feel that the person was very uncontrolled. She barely held herself together. And finally it popped out. I'm getting a divorce. And all along I felt this great emotional stress in that woman. And for the first time in my life, I really felt this and felt no need to contribute more to her misery by not saying anything to it.
Mm-hmm. Do you know a topic we haven't discussed very much, which it might be a good idea to talk briefly about before we have a break? It's the topic of patience. Has the patience of any of you been tried even tonight by listening to some of these talks?
Yes.
Huh? Huh? Do any of you think that some of the speakers here are bores? Come on, you can admit it. Do any of you think you might be a bore? You know, it's very valuable. The biggest bore in this room, you think I'm going to say a name, don't you? You're hoping I'm not. The biggest bore in this room is the most valuable person to you. Right?
Right.
When is he going to stop talking about himself? You know, and at the same time, or she, you're watching your own reaction to it, and you refuse to get negative over that, who is indeed a crashing bore. We're not going to lie about it. If you're boring, you're boring. Well, we found the bores. Who are the brilliant speakers in the room? Let's see the hands of the brilliant speakers. Joan, are you a brilliant speaker?
No, I'm pointing at you.
Let's take a 10-minute break. All right, write down a sentence. Spiritual stupidity is the failure to realize that the attacker and his victim are the very same person. Spiritual stupidity is the failure to realize that the attacker and his victim is the very same person. Doesn't that clear up 1,000 questions in your mind? Don't you know that you never attacked anyone on earth except yourself?
Right.
You have never hurt anybody's feelings. You have never attacked anyone. What you have done, listen, what you have done is attack yourself. When the other person was with you, when you attacked yourself and you thought you were attacking him, he attacked himself. Right? By taking your attack on the level of the attack itself. Do you understand the depths of this if you can see it? Example. Maybe a little simple example would help. Illustration. A soldier takes his rifle and he goes out in the woods to scout and shoot the enemy. And he goes out there and the bushes are thick and it's kind of dark at night. And he sees another soldier creeping up toward him over there. And he fires and wounds a soldier and finds out that it's one of his own, soldier of his own army. Don't you see every time you shoot the rifle at all, you injure yourself? We've tracked down this odd behavior many times, but maybe we'd better go over it again. When I attack myself, when I bayonet and shoot myself, it's because I love being wounded. It's a marvelous feeling to be wounded, because I'm the wounded soldier. I'm persecuted, for example. You persecute me, and I even find ways to invite you to persecute me by continuing to live with an idiot like you. which makes me an equal idiot? Spend the next 6 months trying to understand a phrase which you heard when you first came here, which may be new to some of you. And that phrase is false feeling of life. Every time you injure yourself, and all injury is self-injury, every time you injure yourself, you like the thrill of it. You like the thrill of being scared, because that makes you a scared person. It gives you something to do with yourself. Now you tell me who's psychopathic, that you or I enjoy scaring ourselves because we don't know anything else to do with ourselves. And indeed, mechanical emotions, compulsive emotions, never have any other knowledge, to use that word, of what to do with themselves, except to flow as they do. They can't know anything else. You can't know you can't know anything but the pain of your own negative emotions. You can never know anything but that. If you give up, if you vanish, you being the pain, right? You being the pain itself, when you vanish, the pain, the fear, the anxiety, the tension, the nervousness, the loneliness also vanishes, because they're all one and the same. I'll tell you, I will redouble my efforts in teaching this class if you will redouble your efforts. Now I'll tell you what I will do if you will join me in working twice as hard. I will work extra hard from now on. I mean this, I'm not just talking. I will work extra hard on myself in order to be able to convey to you in a new way, in another way, in a conscious way, the fact that the only thing you have is your false self, with its false feeling of life, all its scares and hatreds. And I will try to convey to you that you must first see that this is all you are, all you have, and all you experience all day long. I will try to find ways to show you what a terrified human being you are. I will try to show you how revenge against another person is one of the great joys of your life, whether it's mental or physical, and usually mental and emotional, because if you bop them, you'll go to jail. And that's the only reason you don't bop them, for fear of being punished. If we can begin to see that all we are, all we have is a bundle of silly superstitions, of agony, of confusion, of boredom. Our little mechanical habits run out for the day, and we get scared that when we don't know what to do, so we immediately go into mental activities. If we can see that this is all we are and all we have ever had, then the intelligence arising out of seeing this total block of lies as us, the intelligence of seeing that will arouse the next intelligent step of dropping the whole mess, of dying to yourself while you're still alive in the flesh. I've talked to you about this many, many times, and you're nowhere beginning to understand of what you must do. And every one of us can see evidence right in this room. For example, standing up here and giving a mechanical I'm not criticizing, we have to understand the state we're in. Sarah said something very good during the break. Something like, if we could catch ourselves right in the middle of boring someone, catch ourselves right in the middle of it and stop it, that would be a shock that would reveal that we're a crashing bore to other people, thinking that we're fascinating them, and even want applause after. If we could give us that little shock, that would show us what we really are. The other person isn't going to do it. Never mind him. He's going to bore you. He's going to use you. He has no conscience any more than you and I have when we bore other people. But if we could give ourselves that little shock, that would be the intelligence we're talking about. My God, is this the way I've always been? Are you willing to be completely shamed at what a bore you are, what a liar, how deceitful you are, how you tell lies to yourself and tell lies to the rest of us right in this room? And I could count about 12 of them if I wanted to give thought to it tonight right here in this room. Lies, facial lies as well as verbal lies. You have got to get to the point where you're willing to give up the movement of thought which makes you who you are sure, in quote marks, you are. If you won't give that movement of thought up, the movement of false emotions, false feeling of life, then you'll just have to go in the squirrel's cage of mechanical living for the rest of your life, going on in this circle, driving yourself nuts. Your one hope, I'm telling you, every one of you here, your only hope is to get tired of lying and say, please help me not be a liar anymore. I need help. I can't do it myself. Of course you can't. You need help to be shown 1,000 times deeper that you can't do it for yourself. Because you're still quite sure that maybe this meeting will be the magic meeting where you'll go out of here and have the secret of life. You're too happy. You're too happy with your misery, aren't you? I know you are, or you wouldn't keep it. You wouldn't retain it. I look out here and I see these sad faces, sometimes hostile faces, hostile manners, pretense. Look, I will say I consciously so you'll understand. I don't want you to be sad anymore. I don't want you to be a victim of your own hoax. I really don't want you to be sad because I know that it's not necessary. I know that there is a conscious movement in this world, working in this world, that calls certain men, certain women to come together and understand that you don't have to be sad, you don't have to be defeated over anything at all. If you're 90 years old and know that you have one day to live, that doesn't make you sad. If you've been a business flop all your life and you're 40, 50, 60 years old and you're barely paying the bills, that won't make you sad. Nothing can make you sad. I want to tell you that you don't have to be sad anymore. You know what my problem is? How can I get you to see that your love of sadness is false life? You want to be, you're not going to give it up. I know you're not. You're fighting like mad as I'm talking to you right now. And you don't even know it. That's how unconscious you are. When you review your day, just today, and see how you behave, And at the same time, if you can see how you behave and see that your behavior causes you suffering, causes you pain, and you can say, God help me, I'm not going to love being miserable anymore. If you can say that with 1 ounce of consciousness, you've got it. Instead of sitting back and smugly enjoying your hatred, enjoying your loneliness, enjoying your tears, as long as your attention is centered around you, you're happily miserable, right?
Right.
It's going to take a team of 5,000 cosmic horses hitched together to tug you away from who you assume you are. You're going to fight. This is why we've got to put more energy into it. I've got to. You've got to. This is no game. I'll tell you. You want to be happy? I'll tell you how to start. I'll tell you how to start being happy, authentically happy. Every day when you get up, you determine that as weak as you are, as dumb as you are, as unknowledgeable, as hypocritical, as lying as you are, you're going to this day do the best you can to understand these principles and put them into practice. That decision in the morning will start the morning off right, and it will make you happy. It will make you happy because it is happiness. To say sincerely and energetically, I'm going to learn today, is happiness itself. You don't have to do anything. The very decision, I'm going to work, is happiness. And you'll see it for yourself sometime. And if you want to double your happiness, double your resolve to work. Triple it. Quadruple it. You don't want to go back, do you? You don't want to go back to the old ways, do you? Would you like to ask questions or talk about something?
Vernon, when we get up and talk, like on Sunday morning or like we did tonight, and then we say, and I consciously did that, or, I consciously was aware of my feelings, are we really, or is this, at this point, sort of a lot of imagination mixed up with maybe just a little tiny bit of awareness, maybe?
You're quoting your memorized lessons.
Am I?
All of you are. Every one of you who stood up here talked in your sleep without exception. Every single one of you. And the rest of you listened in your sleep. That suddenly strike you? Took a little time. Zena.
Would we notice a difference with a tiny bit of awakeness?
Yes, you would. You would feel different, I guess.
And we wouldn't go out and do the same thing again.
You couldn't. You couldn't. Write down another sentence. Nothing is easier than doing what is truly right for me. Nothing is easier than doing what is truly right for me when I see it clearly. When I see it clearly.